Hello St. Wilfrid's and welcome back to the second episode of the St. Wilfrid's podcast. It's Amelia speaking and today we'll be interviewing Mr. Ferry.
Hi there.
Hello. Apart from the bins that have been ordered, how else is the school plan to help be more eco-friendly?
Well, one of the things that you might have seen is in the car park we've got 4 electric charging points which have they haven't been finished yet. We're waiting for, so I don't know what we're waiting for, but they're not ready to use yet. But they've been installed and all the cabling's in there. So that's one thing. The other thing is we're in the process of replacing all of the lights in the corridors with LED lights. So as and when those lights that we've got die, we replace them with the LED ones. That's why you can see sometimes when the lights are on, you've got so much of bright white and so much of yellow. The yellow ones are the ones that haven't been replaced yet. We've also invested in the software in our boiler system, which means that we're using less energy to heat up the school during the course of the week, and that's also saving us money. And the other thing that we're waiting for is the production of a feasibility study on what's called a ground source heat pump. So basically what that would mean is that eventually we wouldn't need to use carbon fuels for heating. What would happen is that, in very simple terms, it basically means that there's a big long pipe which is zigzags backwards and forwards all the way around our field and up and down the middle of it, quite significantly under the ground, and that generates the heat, which then heats up our radiators in the school. So there's just some examples of how we can make even further improvements to become greener.
Fantastic, thank you. Emily, over to you.
Hello. Why did you choose to become a head teacher?
Well, to be honest, I saw enough people do it and I thought I could do a better job. This is not necessarily at St. Wilfrid's, but in other schools where I'd been into, and I thought, well, if that person can be a head teacher, then so can I. But actually the driving thing was, over the years I became quite committed to sort of what I felt was important in education, and those were the things that I wanted to have as priorities when and if I became a head teacher. And then when I first came to St. Wilfrid's, I did have this notion that I wanted to be a head, but I didn't realise it was going to be at St. Wilfrid's. And then I kind of fell in love with St. Wilfrid's, and it made the decision for me, really. And when the job became available, I applied for it, and I was fortunate to be appointed, and I've loved every minute of it.
Thank you.
What was your dream job when you were younger?
I used to get a magazine called Science Now, and it was kind of cutting edge stuff, and it would talk about some of the things that you see in science fiction films, like metals that can bend, not bend because you can bend metals, but like you could turn into liquids and things like that. And it was just like, I was just amazed by it. And I remember one of the first editions, it was about space. And I just remember from that sort of really young age thinking, wow, I want to be an astronaut. And then I still have that kind of passion for space and stuff, but realised that probably, well, actually, it wasn't necessarily that I realised I wasn't clever enough or anything else like that. It's just nobody took it seriously. And that's one of the previous questions being asked about why did I want to become a head teacher. I didn't want anybody to be put off and told you weren't good enough. And that's kind of like what I was told about going to university, that I wasn't clever enough to go to university. And when I mentioned, the notion of astronomy and the going into space and being an astronaut or anything like that, it was kind of just sneered at, really. And that wasn't just by students when I was at school, that was by teachers. And I kind of got put off. And my second sort of dream really was, from about the age of 12 or 13, was I fancied being a PE teacher, and then obviously I didn't get to do that as soon as I left school, but I make some decisions later on in life, and I took that course and went to university, became a PE teacher, and then obviously my career came from there. But first, as long as I can remember back, I think the first thing I was just fascinated by was being an astronaut.
Mr. Ferry, when you were younger, what was your favourite subject in school?
I loved history. Loved history. I loved geography. When I got to secondary school, I really enjoyed woodwork and metalwork, and I was good at it as well. So that was pleasing. And I loved PE. I wasn't necessarily the best person in the class, but I worked hard and made sure that I got fit and I always did my best, certainly in PE. But I think probably the best subject, the one I looked forward to most during the course of the week when I was in secondary school, was woodwork, which I took for GCSE and ended up doing it post 16 as well.
Oh yeah. If you weren't a head teacher, what would you teach in school?
What would I teach? Well, in the last few years, whilst I've been head teacher, I've taught a range of subjects, including design technology, maths, and RE and a range of others. What would I teach? I'd probably end up still be, if I wasn't a head teacher, I'd probably still be a PE teacher.
The last few years, what do you feel about lockdown, and if you could take one main positive thing away from this whole experience, what would it be?
I think when the first lockdown happened, I remember sitting in my chair, the announcement had been made, and it was the Thursday morning, and we were told that schools were going to close the next day, and it was like, well, blimey, what are we going to do? And actually one thing that very, very quickly was reinforced very, very quickly was that basically head teachers across the country were chucked underneath.
But if we all know that lockdown's been a massive part of our school and global really, but if you could take one main thing away from lockdown, what would it be?
I think that when it first started, the pandemic and schools were closed, schools were basically, in my opinion, cast adrift by the Department for Education, and we were left on our own to get on with things. And because of that, we had to be inventive, we had to adapt, we had to make sure that we were learning to change things as we went along. And I think what you see over time is that we adapted how we provided for work, how we supported families, how we supported individual students, and how as a community we all came together. And for me, throughout the whole of the pandemic, I've never failed to be impressed by how the staff have worked tirelessly to make sure that they were the best that they could possibly be in supporting all of the students, and how we've adapted our processes to make sure that as we now have started this academic year in supposedly getting back to near normal times, that we're in a great place to be able to do that. I think in the last year, I think students have adapted fantastically well. They've listened and they've taken responsibility and done what we asked them to do, and that has been one of the proudest achievements, I think.
Well, hello, sir.
Oh, yeah?
It is with great regret that I bring up these questions. Well, the first one is okay, but the second one is rather delicate. So, with the introduction of the new Edith House, it's very it's exciting, but we don't have the colours on our uniforms. When will that happen?
That I've got a meeting actually tomorrow, I think it is, with the suppliers of the uniforms. That won't happen until next year. What will happen is that the current stock that the suppliers have, that'll get used up over the course of this year, and that will go out to people who are buying new bits and pieces. And then from September next year, the new Year 7s, they will have the new not new uniform, but the uniform which has the orange stripe or the orange dot or whatever it might be in it. And in subsequent years, as other students then buy blazers, PE kit, etc., as they grow out, that's when the orange will grow in. So it won't be, we're not going to say that everybody has to have the orange aspect of their uniform for next September, because that would just be daft, because your blazer might quite fit you, or not your blazer, but your skirt might fit you still for next September, and it's just not, it lacks common sense to say that that's what we'll do from next September. So that'll grow in over time, but the tie from next September will have the orange bit in, and again that was something that will grow in over time. I have thought about just giving everybody a brand new school tie with the orange bit in, but it works out that's quite expensive, so I might have to think of something else, but I haven't dismissed that idea just yet.
Speaking of expenses, I've noticed, and many other have noticed, that the cafeteria prices have risen. And I totally understand it. You know, COVID has pushed everyone's budget back, but every little does add up. When will that be taken away? And
I'm not sure that will be. If you look across at prices in other schools, actually we are in some cases cheaper than others, or thereabouts the same. One of the things I have asked with the canteen staff is that they're going to have regular meetings with the student council, and that's going to start next half term. And what I hope that will allow the student bodies to raise issues like that, as well as the choice of menu as well. But I think it's very easy to say that, you know, throwaway comments that it costs too much, or the choice isn't great, but what you're getting is probably the best that can be made available for that cost. And the issues that we have in supply, the issues that we have in terms of the restrictions of what they can and can't do on site, mean that what you're getting is probably the most cost-effective meal that is available at the moment.
Smith here, and I know that you're a busy man, you've got a meeting to go to, so I'd like to say thank you on behalf of all of us for agreeing to take part in this interview. But the last question which the students came up with, which I think is a very good one, I'm going to ask you, are you proud of how the school has been doing over the past few years?
Yeah, exceptionally. I think this is a great school. Ofsted will say that we're a good school. The Catholic Church, in terms of their inspection, will say we're an outstanding school. They're just words, really. This is a great school because the principles that we believe in, that are on the wall as you come into reception, you can see them being lived out every day. We've got a quote at the end of the corridor as you walk up to the science stairs. It says, "Preach the gospel at all times, and when necessary, use words." And I think for me that sums up what we're about, because people walk into this school and they go, "Wow, I can feel it. I can feel the energy. I can feel the dynamism." I walk around the classrooms with visitors and they go, "Wow, it's so calm, so orderly. Aren't the students great? The students open doors for people. The students say hello to you in the corridor." And that's because we live out our mission, and our mission centrally is based on gospel values. And we seek to be the very best that we can be in everything that we think, say and do. And if you have love and tolerance and respect and forgiveness at the centre of those things, you have a culture which creates fantastic young men and women who are going to go out into the world and make a positive contribution to society. And they will get great grades as well because they'll work hard. For me, that is what I'm most proud about St Wilfrid's.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you.